Hi everyone, hopefully you watched my video about the product rule so that in today's video you will understand what I'm talking about, and we're going to be actually putting the product rule to use and finding the derivatives of some functions which are the product of two other functions. So the first one, we've got f of x being equal to x squared multiplied by sine of x. Okay, great. We want to find the first derivative of f with respect to x, so we do so by saying, okay, well, the x squared, well, we can call that g of x, and we can call sine of x h of x. And we know that f prime of x is going to be equal to g prime of x times h of x plus g of x times h prime of x. And now we can simply just substitute our functions in, so we get that f prime of x is equal to, well, g prime of x, the derivative of x squared, we know as being 2x, and then times that by h of x, which is just sine of x, and we're going to add that to, well, g of x is x squared, and the derivative of h, the derivative of sine of x, is just cosine of x. And that is our first one. Just underline that. That is the answer to the first one. Okay, great. Now the second one, similar sort of thing, but this time we've got x cubed and we've got e to the x. So to find the derivative of this product, we want to find the derivative of x cubed, which is 3x squared. You can verify that. Multiplied by e to the x, because that's just this function over here, and then we're going to add that to, well, we have x cubed and then the derivative of e to the x, which is just e to the x, and that is the second one. And now finally the third one. In this one it actually asks us to find f double prime, which means the second derivative, and what that means is we find the first derivative like we've done before, and then we find the derivative of that. So we do it a second time, we repeat the process, and then you get the second derivative. And you can also find third, fourth, and so on if you want. It's just a bit time consuming. So the second derivative, we first find the first derivative. And the first derivative is going to be, well, e to the x. We differentiate e to the x and just get e to the x. And that's multiplied by the cosine of x. And we add e to the x, and then the derivative of cosine of x, which is minus sine of x, and we'll just rewrite that as e to the x cos x minus e to the x sine x. Now to find the second derivative, we just have to differentiate this function here. So we do that like this. The second derivative is going to be, we look at each component separately. Because as I showed in a video before, when you add two functions and differentiate them, that's basically just the same as differentiating each function individually and then adding them back together. The derivative of a sum is the same as the sum of derivatives, is what I'm saying. So to find this derivative, we look at e to the x cos x first, and we already know from the last bit that is just equal to e to the x cos x minus e to the x sine x. And then we have to look at the second one. So I'm going to take this minus out, and then we'll open a big bracket just so we can show clearly that we're differentiating this second bit only. E to the x, the derivative of e to the x is going to be e to the x, and then that's multiplied by sine of x. And then we look at e to the x, we have that on its own, and the derivative of sine x is cosine x. And that is the second bit. So we get altogether e to the x cos x minus e to the x sine x minus, careful with the minus signs here, minus e to the x sine x minus e to the x cos x. We notice that the e to the x cos x out here cancels with the minus e to the x cos x over there, and we just get minus 2e to the x sine x. And we are all done. So I hope that helps.